It started with a silence, so sharp it could slice through a whole Morninho sirens. No warning, just a black SUV drifting slow down a sleepy suburban road, its windows dark as midnight secrets. Not a single plate number showing up on the local patrol screen. You know, that type of quiet that's too heavy, like the universe is just waiting to drop the next shoe. And all you can do is listen. Officer Ray Beckett was out there, thumb tapping his holster, when that alert came in about a possible match on. A break-in vehicle from earlier, same make, same color, and a black man at the wheel. Suspicion didn't ask for permission. It just slammed the door open and waltzed in, you know what I mean? Beckett didn't call for backup, wanted that scene for himself. Control it before it got away from him, like they hammered into him at the academy, especially on mornings where nothing really adds up, but your gut tells you to be ready anyway. He pulled up behind the SUV, tires whispering over the blacktop. No one was speeding, nobody crossing lines, but something about the way that driver just sat there so still, hands on the wheel, suited up, gave Beckett this itch he couldn't scratch, keyed his radio. Just a blip, nothing official, no backup. Then the officer's voice echoed through the speaker, sharp as a slap. Step out of the vehicle. And behind that wheel sat the director of the FBI, no joke. The man who led the country's top law enforcement, cool as stone, eyes on the mirror, didn't panic, didn't raise his voice, just said, "You're making a mistake you can't unmake." Not a movie, but real life. Right in front of a corner store's camera, a shaky cell phone in some bystander's hand, and a police dash cam catching it all. The officer's finger curled on his holster, eyes gone hard, breath held, and Tate the director didn't even flinch, not once. He just waited it out. Now that's composure. What happened next wasn't about uniforms or titles. Not real lie, it was about assumptions so old they rot from the inside out, about what happens when power gets blindfolded by prejudice. How law enforcement, without real checks, can morph into a loaded weapon pointed at the wrong person. The video went up before either man could blink, hashtags blooming like wildfire. The story winding its way across TikTok, YouTube, cable news. This wasn't some traffic stop, it was gasoline on a fire that had been smoldering under the American floorboards for years. The real hook? It started with a man, a car, and that old question, what is a safety mean when you look like the suspect and not the neighbor? Now, Maple Ridge was the kind of town folks brag about: tree-lined streets, safe neighborhoods, folksy markets, low crime stats that made realtors giddy, but you could feel the tension running under the white fences and tidy lawns, something unspoken that everyone ignored until it bit back. Beckett, he was a fixture here, 10 years on the force, ex-military, the department's guy for non-standard stops, reputation for being firm, but people whispered he hated being questioned by anybody, especially folks who didn't look like him. He'd tell you it wasn't about race, just instinct, patterns you feel in your bones. But some patterns can't be justified, and he had no idea who sat behind that wheel. Tate wasn't just any bigwig. He was a symbol of post-racial America. Rose up the hard way. Not for show, but for results. Constitutional scholar, terror negotiator, former U.S. attorney, the kind of guy who walked into a courtroom and the whole mood changed. But out here, power didn't ride with a Badgett Road silent, behind dark glass, GPS off, just a man trying to get to a meeting with the governor, didn't need an entourage, didn't need a scene, just needed to not get stopped at gunpoint. Beckett rolled up, hand hovering over his belt, tapping the door, rolled down the window. Tate did as he was told. "May I ask why I've been stopped?" No attitude, just calm. "License and registration." Tate explained, "You might not recognize this vehicle. It's government protected." Beckett wasn't hearing it. License and registration, slower, like Tate was hard of hearing. As Tate reached into his jacket, Beckett's hand flicked open his holster. That one small move made the whole moment shift. And for Tate, it was no longer about a vehicle match. It was about whether his life was in danger. You want to talk about tension? It wasn't loud. No screaming, no shoving, just two men in a standoff. One calculating, one suspicious, both carrying whole histories behind their eyes. Tate kept his voice level. "Before I reach, my name is Marshall Tate, director of the FBI." Beckett didn't blink. Out of the car, hand gripping the gun, voice getting tighter. "I'm reaching for my wallet with my right hand." Slowly, Tate warned. Beckett gave nothing back, just silence, thick as fog. Across the street, A teenager by a food truck raised her phone, started filming. The blinking red light was the start of the story's second life. Tate pulled out his wallet, flashed the ID. Official, shiny, FBI. Beckett stared, didn't take it, muttered, "Nice forgery." That line would haunt the case for months, play on every network, turn into memes, become evidence in civil rights forums. A single sentence that said everything wrong about the moment. The next minute is a blur of adrenaline. Beckett stepped back, unclipped the holster, gun half out of the vehicle now. Tate, calm as stone, pressed a silent panic button, a signal to the FBI's local response. Down the street, a blacked-out Suburban kicked into gear, agents on alert, knowing only that their director had triggered a high-risk code. In Oakwood, nobody noticed except the kid with headphones, a barking dog, and that girl live streaming, calling it something's happening. Within minutes, Twitter, then Reddit, then primetime news. But in that moment, the only thing real was the space between a man's dignity and another man's gun. Would the badge protect Tate, or had it just made him a bigger target? Beckett's hand shook, sweat down his spine, maybe knowing, deep down, he crossed a line he couldn't uncross. But Tate didn't move, didn't panic, just looked Beckett straight in the eye. "You're being recorded from at least 2 angles, so whatever you do, make sure it survives playback." Beckett blinked, reality starting to seep through his adrenaline. The girl on the sidewalk narrated, "He's got a badge, he's not yelling, the cop's losing it." And suddenly it wasn't about 2 men anymore, it was about all of us watching. Beckett muttered into his mic, stumbling over his words, calling for backup, not sure what to even say. Possible impersonator, need authority, the kind of hollow language that only gets spoken when you know you're on the wrong side. Before he could work out a next move, the Suburban arrived, glided to a stop, and a federal agent stepped out, plain clothes, earpiece glinting, voice so calm it could cut glass. "Lower your weapon. Step away from the vehicle." It wasn't a request, it was the kind of order that comes with real power behind it. Beckett stammered, weapon still half raised. "Who the hell are you?" "I'm the one you'll answer to if you don't lower that firearm right now." Time froze. The standoff, now bigger than a local cop versus a mysterious driver. Now it was a full-blown jurisdictional crisis, playing out live, soon to be all over cable news. Every phone in the crowd held high, fingers trembling not from fear, but from the electricity of knowing you're seeing history happen. Tate finally stepped out, composed, not shouting, just present. "Let him speak," he told the agent, then faced Beckett. "You just pointed a loaded weapon at a federal official in front of witnesses and your own dash cam. Think about what you're doing." The crowd thickened, everyone whispering, "Is this real?" Phones everywhere, every gesture a possible headline. Beckett's hand finally dropped, gun lowered. The agent stepped forward, took it. "You're done." Beckett stumbled, suddenly a man on stage with no lines to say, led away by another agent, his face all confusion and pride. A woman called to Tate, "Sir, do you need a lawyer?" Not mocking, just protective, the kind of question you ask now because you've seen too many bad outcomes go unrecorded. "I'm fine. Thank you for staying. Your recording matters," Tate replied. Behind the scenes, agents coordinated with FBI command, preparing to escort Tate safely. But for Tate, safety wasn't the point anymore. He walked past Beckett, now cuffed in the back of a cruiser, no longer a cop, just another man facing his consequences, staring at the ground for maybe the first time in his life, understanding at last having a badge doesn't mean you have justice. Within half an hour, media vans swarmed the block, local news with headlines like "Unarmed Federal Official Held at Gunpoint," but everyone on the street knew it wasn't routine. It was a ritual, the ritual of suspicion baked into the culture. Tate gave a quick statement. "I am safe, but safety should not depend on titles." That line went viral, clipped and shared. The message: simple justice begins with accountability, not rank. By morning, the story was everywhere. Department of Justice announced an internal review. The twist: 3 past complaints about Beckett from drivers of color, all quietly buried. One settled out of court, none publicized. It wasn't about Tate at all. He just happened to be the first with enough power to blow the lid off. Tate called a press briefing. No handlers, no teleprompter, just him, stating it plain. This is not about one officer, but the space we give patterns to grow in silence. Accountability isn't vengeance seats the foundation of trust. At the same time, the sealed complaints were sent straight to a federal prosecutor, criminal charges filed, not just internal slap-on-the-wrist discipline. Beckett was suspended, later indicted for civil rights violations, stripped of his badge, his future set in a court docket, not a patrol car. But the twist nobody saw coming? The teenage girl's live stream went viral. 18 million views, picked up by civil rights orgs. Used in classrooms, her quote, "I didn't know who he was, I just knew it wasn't right," became a rallying cry. Proof that digital witnesses now hold the power to change the script. Senate hearings, national headlines, police unions scrambling, departments across the country launching new bias training. And that simple question from Florida chief, if this can happen to the FBI director, how safe is the average person? Tate's answer trended. You don't need to fear law enforcement, but law enforcement should fear the absence of accountability. In the end, Beckett faced charges no one really defended him. Not even his own colleagues. They said he'd always tried to control scenes, but some scenes were never his to control. The final turn a class action suit from Beckett's earlier victims. Their voices now given weight, reframing the narrative. This wasn't about one powerful man. It was about a whole system finally forced into the light. Beckett was convicted, his badge and shield gone, not just the medal, but the self-belief that nobody would challenge him. Tate didn't make speeches, didn't celebrate. He stood alone outside the courthouse, breathing in, knowing the system worked, not because it wanted to, but because people cared enough not to look away. Asked later what he remembered most, Tate didn't talk about the gun or the courtroom. He talked about the girl who filmed. She didn't know who I was. She just knew what was happening wasn't right. That's citizenship. That's democracy in motion. Beckett, meanwhile, wrote in his journal, "I believed I was defending the public. I see now I was defending my fear." Policy changed, training reformed, conversations echoed in homes across the country. What would I have done? The real ending was never about punishment, but about millions of people reflecting, questioning, demanding better. True power, as Tate once told the Senate, isn't about commanding fear. It's about facing the mirror before someone else holds it up. And this time, the world finally didn't look away. If you've watched this far, what do you think? Was justice served? Or does the story just start here? Let's talk. Drop your thoughts about right, wrong, and what accountability should look like where you live.